Okay, so in this video, I'm going to show you how to build an AI classification system that automatically takes responses from a survey and analyzes it to see what the customer is looking for. So in this first column, you'll see it's called How Can We Improve Crowdless for You? So the AI system is looking at each of these responses and then classifying it in terms of the thing that the customer wants improved. So for example, if it says no idea, perhaps more data would be nice, it considers it being that the customer wants an improvement in the features. If it says just keep it working well, the system classifies it as the customer caring about ease of use. And with each of these classifications is a confidence score that corresponds with how confident the system is that it was correctly classifying the responses in these categories. And then finally, there is also a keyword extraction system, which takes the keywords that were in each of these responses and extracts them so that you can then further analyze the data and see what people want. So I'm going to take you through step by step and show you how to build the system from scratch so that you can also analyze your customers and see what they're looking for without manually reading thousands of responses. So this is particularly useful if you have a lot of surveys and you have a lot of responses and you don't want to be analyzing it manually. So really the core of this AI detection system is a tool called MonkeyLearn, which is a SaaS product that has pre-built classifier models and extraction models using artificial intelligence that you can run your data through to get useful insights. So how it works is you can log into their system by creating an account, and then you can explore all the models that they have pre-built already. So everything ranging from, say, sentiment analysis to detecting how positive a review is, if it's negative, if it's neutral, to things like detecting profanity or abuse in submissions, to extracting keywords. There's a variety of demo models that are already pre-built that you can leverage. So the ones we'll be using are the NPS SAS feedback classifier. And what this does is it classifies feedback based on what category the customer wants improved. Is it more and better customer support? Is it better ease of use, more features, more pricing? So it essentially groups the text that the customer submits into one of these categories. This is using a pre-built model. So that's one thing we'll be using. The second model we'll be using is something called the keyword extractor. And essentially it takes a text, so for example, a text like this, and it pulls out all the relevant keywords so you can know what this text is talking about. And it's also got a corresponding relevance score for each of the keywords, so you can see how relevant each of the words are to the meaning, the semantic meaning of the text. So if we just scroll through these are the relevance scores for each of the keywords that were being pulled. And then what we do with MonkeyLearn is we build a scenario in Integromat that links together Airtable with MonkeyLearn. And I'll walk you through how this scenario is built step by step. But essentially, it watches for new survey responses, so new rows being added to a particular Airtable. And then it analyzes those submissions, so this column, how can we improve Crowdless for you, using those two models from MonkeyLearn that I was talking about, both the keyword extractor model as well as the NPS SAS classifier model. So it analyzes all of these submissions using those two models, and then it updates the Airtable with the corresponding analysis. So what which category does the SAS classifier determine, the confidence score, as well as the keywords. Okay, so the first thing to do to get started is to create a MonkeyLearn account, and then go to the top right-hand corner of your screen, take the API key you see here, copy paste it into the MonkeyLearn module on Integromat, and this is how you create a connection. So you go to connection, you go to add, you go to name the connection name, whatever you want, and then copy and paste the API key into this field over here. And then you will now have a connection to MonkeyLearn. So that's now set up. Now let's walk through the modules one by one. So for the first module, this is a watch records module on Airtable. So watch records, and it's looking for newly created rows in the Airtable. So every time somebody submits a survey, there's a new row added. So this is a trigger situation that watches for new rows being created. So the settings for it look like this. So the connection is whatever Airtable account that you're linked with. If you're not linked with one yet, it's pretty straightforward. Just go to add, type in your connection, find the API token that's on Airtable, and then you'll be connected. And then, so the base right now is this community base, which has got a lot of Crowdless information about their community. The table we're looking for is something called survey, because this is where they've put all their surveys. The trigger field is simply the thing that is being used to recognize that a new row is being created. So in this case, we have the date field. Airtable recognizes when a new row is created, when there was a new date submission. And then the label field is simply what is essentially the main label of each of the rows. In this case, we have it set to city because it's just the first column. So that's not really that important. And then what we have here is the grid view, which is just a way of viewing the data given a set of filters or a set of groupings. So right now, this is just my personal view. We can switch it back to the grid view, which contains all the data. My personal view, I just applied certain types of filters onto the data, but it's really not that important. So just choose the view you're most comfortable with, and what Airtable will be doing is it'll be watching for new records created under that view. So if it's in grid view, and this is my view called John view, it's not going to have any of the records that are visible in grid view under John view. So then this formula over here is actually not important at all, so I'm just going to remove it. And then finally, this max records field is how many new records will this scenario process at once, simultaneously, in just one execution. So we've just set it arbitrarily high at 500 because it's very unlikely that there's going to be over 500 new submissions during the execution time of this scenario. So set it to however much you want. Right. So, and then we have a router which bifurcates the scenario's execution. And on one side of the router is the extraction keywords model, and on the other side is the classifier model, the NPS SAS classifier. So to get these modules, just open up the MonkeyLearn, and to get the extractor, it's the extract text module. And to get the classify text module, it's the classify text module. So just drag both of these into the right areas that they should be in, and then I'll go through them one by one. So let's start with the NPS classifier. If you open up the module, you'll link it up to your MonkeyLearn connection, and then you simply just choose the classifier model that you want. So NPS SAS feedback classifier. If you go to MonkeyLearn, all those options are simply the same as these options over here. Again, there's a lot you can actually choose from, so you can choose from any of these. So then the next question is, well, what kind of text is it classifying? Well, the source of this data is from your first module, the new survey responses, and you see that we have named the column, how can we improve Crowdless for you? So simply choose the right the right column, how can we improve Crowdless for you, put it in here, and then click OK. And that's it for the classifier module. And then for the extractor of keywords module, well, if we open it up, it's basically identical to the classifier. You select the MonkeyLearn connection you want. This time, because it's extracting text, here are all the different extractors you can choose from. If you go to MonkeyLearn, well, you'll see that there's lots of extractors you can choose from, all these extraction models here. And this will be the same list that you see on Integromat. Choose it, and then the text we're analyzing is in the column, what can we improve Crowdless for you? So simply put it in the right place. And then what you'll see here is that I have two error handlers, which essentially are directives for how the scenario should proceed if there is an error caused by the execution of this module or the execution of this module. To get an error handler, all you do is you right-click the module and you click Add Error Handler. And here are a variety of directives. So we use ignore in these cases. And the reason for that is because, so take a look at this, right? Like, not all of these surveys have a text response in the how can we improve Crowdless for you. If there's no text response, then MonkeyLearn essentially is analyzing nothing, and it's going to cause an error. So what do we do in that case? Well, we just ignore it. So we skip this, skip this, and we just go to the next response, which actually has text in it. So that's what the ignore error handler does. So we do this for both of the cases, both the classifier as well as the extractor. And then the final thing we do is we have to update each of the Airtable rows with the relevant extracted information. So we have to fill out the how can improve NLP column, the confidence, the keywords. So to do that, well, we create and update a record Airtable module, which can be found here, update a record. So we open it up and the details look like this. So the connection is the same as before, same base, same table. The record ID is the record that we were watching for in the new survey responses. So it's going to be the same ID as the watch for new survey responses module. And then the only thing we're going to be updating is, in this case, the keywords column. So the keywords column over here. So everything else is left blank and unchanged. So to do this, well, how the logic works is as follows. So you'll notice that there's a join function and then there's also a map function. In the first video about the updating the investors for Crowdless, I go into a lot more detail about what both of these functions mean. So watch that for more detail. But I'm going to give you a brief overview. So to play with the join function and the map function, go to this button over here, which is called Functions for Working with Arrays. This is where you can type in join, or you can press join, where you can put in map. And essentially what this does is, for map, it's taking the things that were extracted. In this case, the thing that we want is the parsed value text, which essentially is the keywords that are being extracted. So a parsed value could be best hours, it could be glance, it could be statistics. So that's the thing that we want. The reason why we have to have the map function here is because, well, the map is a way of going deeper into the data. Think of it like going deeper into this extractions data, which contains parsed value, but also contains tagged name, extracted text, so on and so forth. So if you just look at the map part of this function here, well, the arguments that you're feeding it is the thing before the semicolon, which is extractions, or in other words, the thing that you want it to go deeper in, and then the name of the thing that you want it to be pulling out, which is the parsed value. And how you get that raw variable is you hover your mouse over it, and you'll see that it says parsed underscore value. So I just type in that. So that's, if we go here, that's what you'll have to feed it in this map function. And then the join function is essentially using everything you have in map. So in this case, if we have extractions, and then we type in parsed value, it's essentially a function of a function. So the join function itself has two arguments. The first is the array. So it's we put in the map over here. So that's the first argument. And what this is doing is it's joining together all of the parsed values. So for example, you'll see that best hours, glance, statistics are all joined together under this keywords column. And the join function is what allows it to do it. And then the final thing for the join function is the second part of the argument, which is the separator. It's the thing after the semicolon, or the thing over here. And it's the thing that you want to be using to separate those parsed values. You'll notice that in this case we have a comma and a space, so it's using a comma and a space to separate all of those parsed values. So what we do is just type in that, a comma and a space. And you can separate it however you want. You can do something like this, for example. You can separate with a break like that. But this is all up to you. So that's how you update the keywords field. So let's close this. Now, to update the classifier information, well, the process is exactly the same. We're still updating the same row on Airtable, so we have an update a record module. It's the same ID because we're still watching for the same row that was being watched for in the new survey responses, except this time we don't change anything about the keywords. We just have to change the how can improve NLP column as well as the confidence column. So let's go through the confidence column first, because it's essentially identical to the thing that I showed you before with the updated record. It's using the same join function, it's using the same map function, and if you do that, you'll get the confidence scores for each of these extractions. So it's identical, so I'm not going to go through that. The only difference is the how can improve NLP column. Notice that there's no join function here, and that's actually kind of important. And the reason for that is, well, if we scroll through this column, you'll notice that sometimes there's actually two things that are present in the how can improve NLP. So in this case, the person wants more local, smaller shops, not just the supermarkets, and make it easier to add shops in the community. So the AI detects this as a person wanting, features, which are the more local, smaller shops, as well as ease of use, which is to make it easier to add shops to the community. So both of these things are important. So we need to pass both of these parsed values. If we joined it using the same formula as the confidence, what would happen is these two things would not be separate entities. They'd instead be one entity, and it would be called features, comma, ease of use, and that'd be one thing. So that's a problem, because we want to be able to analyze both of these things as distinct, because they are distinct. So all we do there is we just use the map function, and we don't also put in the join function. We don't put the map function inside the join function. And if we don't do that, these two will remain as separate entities. So let me demonstrate this scenario one time. So let me just go to the Airtable, and I'll delete all of these so we can redo them, so you can see how it works. So I'm going to clear all of these records, and then we'll go back to the Integromat, and we're going to choose where to start. We're going to do all of it just for demonstration purposes, and we're going to click Run Once. So that was very slow, but now you'll see that it's updating the records. And you'll see how now on the Airtable, it's processing all of this data and adding it all in real time. So that is how the scenario works. And then you should now be able to build your own AI classification system as well as a keyword extractor to better understand what your customers want.